Welcome everybody, my name is Jane108. I hail from down under, the land of Oz, and I've been researching sacred geometry for over 40 years, and over the decades I've decided to put all that is important, all that is sacred meaning that which is permanent, timeless, forever, is one of the codes of creation, is studying the fruits and the flowers and the symmetry inside the microcosm and the macrocosm. And what this subject is about, art forms in nature, is a recognition that we are the bridge between the worlds. So when we study things like the blue corn, we see perfected packing of the biological fruits and flowers. So this is something that we can be wowed about. So I've taken all this incredible information that's visible in nature, and I've decided to present it in 3 parts over half an hour. So part 1, we're going to look at the amazing biological microscopic art of Ernst Haeckel, one of my mentors, and I'm going to show you this is the first book that he actually put out, called Art Forms in Nature. And this changed me when I first bought this when I was in my 20s at the Agile bookstore. So I'll show you a bit of his life. Part 2 is called Inside the Structures of Crystals, which is more the hexagonal geometries, because biology is more pentagon. And so we're going to look at crystals which are hexagon, which shapes modern technology. And then part 3 is the awesome geometry of fruits and flowers, which looks at all the amazing things that we are familiar with. Again, pentagonal geometries, not just in fruits and flowers, but how it is in our DNA. And then to conclude, we're going to show how that this geometry within us is also seen in the planet as well, how we are connected from the cell to the human to the whole planet. So that's our conclusion. To make this a coherent body of knowledge, we have to understand why is it important that we eat healthy foods, because we are what we eat. You can see here what the Rangoli is, a blessing that is drawn in front of temples and doors to show that the geometry of living things is part of our experience. So in my synopsis here, we're going to look at the microscopic world of cells and crystals, but basically we want to recognize that this biological symmetry exists in the micro and the macro, and this places humans, us, as the bridge between the worlds. So part 1 here is we're going to just quickly look at some of the fantastic lithographs, drawings that Ernst Haeckel did. And he was working around in the 1860s to 1880s, and you can see a picture of him here with his colleague when they're working in the Canary Islands. But observe this giant starfish down here at his feet. It's the size of like a 1-foot high starfish, and I just love the way that he had that in his painting there, in his drawing. So one of the early drawings that first amazed me was seeing the 5 platonic solids to be characterized as living biological structures. So what we're looking at here is called exoskeletons. These are the outer structures. So pollen here looks like a tetrahedron. So we have a tetrahedron here. So this is this geometry here is a living shape. So even though we're looking at an external fossil of Radiolaria, it's kind of like a marine plankton or protozoa. It's a single-celled creature whose geometry is one of the 5 platonic solids. So that's what kind of switched me on in my 20s. So I ended up going to the bookstore and I bought that book on art forms in nature. And it's funny that it's been stolen 3 times out of my library that I had to buy it again. So when I bought this book again, I ended up getting this book here. So this book is so heavy. It's this big and it's so heavy I can barely carry it. And it's the book that I'm reading now, but when you open it up, you can see all these amazing geometries that he drew by hand around 1860. So this is kind of like my Bible at the moment. So the first edition was done in German. It's called Kunstformen der Natur by Ernst Haeckel, and that's a very limited edition. This is the one that I have. That was the first book. It's only about 70 pages. The one I just showed you now is about 500. So he was a German embryologist, a zoologist, and he was also known as an evolutionist because he was a proponent of the Darwinism, which was kind of new notions on the evolutionary descent of human beings. So that's the large book that I just showed you from Taschen, his complete work. So the rest of this chapter is just to show you these beautiful species of, say, Asteridia. Aster means star, Asteriskos. There's various species of Peromedusae. Medusa is a jellyfish, so beautiful, exquisite hand-drawn patterns. These are another single-celled creatures that have snake-like protrusions, like you can see here. Then there's Discoidia. I couldn't find the meaning of Discoidia, so I didn't explain that one. It's a great way to learn Latin is when you look at the names of these molecular structures. So Siphonophore, siphon means like a pipe or a tube. So you can see all these little creatures here have tube-like emanations, but they're just absolutely awe-inspiring, amazing hand drawings that he did. Basically, it's a tribute to someone who's dedicated his life to the invisible world. What he's essentially done is made visible the invisible, and so that's why in teaching sacred geometry, we're looking for high visual content. Again, more jellyfish. We notice that there's pentagonal and hexagonal geometries, like over here with the Trachomedusae. Tracho, again, means like our lungs are related to the tracheo. So here we have diatoms. Diatomos is a Greek word, means cut in two. It appears these structures seem to be cut in half, but again, recognize the symmetry. We are symmetry hunters of the highest order, because symmetry will lead to order amidst the chaos. Here's some beautiful corals. Look, it looks like the brain here. So these are the diagrams that first switched me on when I was just 20 years old. And that's the importance of having beautiful public libraries where we can have access to these. These are clamshells. These creatures here all have little holes in them called pores, so they're called foraminifera. So they have their porosity. Again, these are some of my favorite ones with the radiolaria. These are the marine planktons. Radiolaria comes from the word radius, which kind of means radiant spikes, like a spike protein. We can see these single-celled creatures have beautiful emanations. So we're looking at what we call single-celled microstructures or exoskeletons. Just beautiful pictures. And I've taken one here, for example, here of the Spumellaria, and I've enlarged it here. Beautiful 12-ray geometry. So that was just an introduction to Ernst Haeckel. For me to read that large book I just showed you, it would take me years, which I am studying it now. And what it does, it makes us join the links, join the dots, and see that everything is interconnected. So part 2 is going from, say, biology. We're going to go over to what we call crystal, living structures of crystals. And my best quote about crystals, most of you already know this, is from Nikola Tesla. In a crystal, we have the clear evidence of the existence of a formative life principle. And though we cannot understand the life of a crystal, it is nonetheless a living being. And here we have citrine. I personally believe that not are they just living beings, but these geometries respond, these crystalline structures respond intimately to both the mind and to geometry. And this is the key to all technology, is the hexagonal array of silicon dioxide known as quartz crystal. So its geometry stores infinite data and therefore allowed technology to advance. But we have to be careful where technology is going. So this wire, chicken wire type technology here is 1 atom thin. And it's revolutionizing the world so fast that maybe we have to slow down and come back to the garden. So we recognize that shape stores memory, but we have to make sure that the people who are controlling the technology have pure intention and goodwill, otherwise the technology will self-implode. This was the first photograph of an atom ever taken of platinum crystal, and it was done by Professor Müller. Professor Müller was around in the 1950s. So this is a very historical photo showing the beautiful octahedral symmetry of platinum crystal. It's kind of like a double pyramid. because you're only seeing it there in 2D, but in the 3D, the octahedron is pretty much a representation of what we call the diamond light body. This is another crystal here called pyrite. So you know that pyrite is cubic, but I want to show you something else amazing about pyrite. Like in its natural state, we can see that pyrite, it's in a matrix here, but pyrite actually, 5 cubes come together and form what's called the dodecahedron. So let me show you the dodecahedron. So here we have a dodecahedron. So this dodecahedron here, which has 12 pentagon faces, or which is, when it's done in glass, you can see that. Did you know that this pentagonal geometry of the dodeca, which is known as the element of spirit, also exists in the natural world of pyrite? So this is the dodecahedral form of pyrite. This is a very rare crystal, but it's a naturally grown. It has not been shaped and polished. This is its natural geometrical form, and this is going to lead to our conclusion that the Earth also is a dodecahedron, which means that this is a fractal, a self-similar miniature copy of the larger picture. So that's why these crystals are important. So there's the dodecahedron of pyrite, and 5 cubes tilt to make the dodeca. So this here is the tilted version to reveal the cube. So when you see hexagon, like we see that with bees have perfect packing through hexagonal geometry. So I see that a crystal represents a whole living eco-village. It's a civilization of living beings. So we see a pretty crystal, but really we're looking at galactic structures here. Some crystals, they grow together, they're twinned or twining. This one here is, I use this to protect me from computer EMF, but this black tourmaline here, it's got 6 sides, but basically the point has 3, and it's just showing you the geometry of 3 diamonds meeting at a point. So these all have important capabilities. So this is the key to advancing technology, but they're living things. So shungite, I always cleanse my water with shungite. So this is a pyramid of black shungite, but its molecular structure is no different than, say, the soccer ball. So when we see the soccer ball, at any vertex here we have 5, 6, 6. At any vertex you touch, it's 5, 6, 6. But that happens to also be the configuration of the DNA molecule, which is what we're concluding with. Our bones are crystalline. So when we look at a cube, so when you look at the geometry of a cube, you can see that there's 8 little cubelets in there. But if we were to draw the pyramid from the center to the bases, we end up with what's called the atomic structure of bone. So this is all sacred geometry at its best. A lot of people are familiar with the work of the late Masaru Emoto, who filmed these water structures, and they're all hexagonal. So water is attempting to communicate something to us, he said. Negative emotions prevent the water from crystallizing. Positive emotions allow it to develop in beautiful hexagonal shapes. So every thought we have affects the water. So he wrote this book called The Hidden Messages in Water to make us conscious of every thought, every word we say. When we say, I love you or thank you, we are changing the world. We are rearranging the universe to become more symmetrical and coherent and harmonious. So that's all about the power of words. But that's a recognition that we are all water on 2 legs. So we are affecting our human body form just by our thoughts. So, you know, we're talking about here's the sacred geometry of water. So look at the vorticity of the vortexes here. They look like the helixes of DNA, and they twist and move in different ways as they go around in the southern hemisphere, the northern hemisphere. So it's all about spin and coherence. So we know we all love snowflakes. You can research snowflakes, but I found one snowflake that wasn't hexagon. It was actually a pentagon. So this is a very rare photo. So this is the beauty of studying patterns in nature, is that they keep revealing to us the awesome variation of what life presents. And this is the final chapter called Part 3. I call this the awesome pentagonal geometry of fruits and flowers. And so I just wanted to go through this a bit quickly because you're familiar with a lot of these geometries that, and when we talk about pent or 5, we're talking about the Fibonacci sequence, which is something I would like everyone to learn. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. You keep adding the past to the present. 5 plus 8 creates the future, 13. And all these numbers, 8, 13, 21, are the geometry of spirals in flowers. So you grab a pawpaw and you'll see that nature chooses the optimum way to store its seeds. In a way, it's a time to repent. This is nature's secret, the perfection of form. The pentagon is one of the faces of the dodecahedron. Even if you pick up a tomato and look at the sepals, the green sepals that you see here, it has 5 emanations. It looks a bit like a starfish. But the very geometry of the tomato, the smell of a tomato, because the slice of the tomato there looks like the internal chambers of the heart, but when we smell the acid coming from a tomato, it actually is a cure for the heart sludge in our arteries. So this is called the doctrine of signatures, which I'm going to talk about later. But just before I get to that, I have an apple here, and when you cut an apple, you can say most people cut an apple cutting down like that. That's called longitudinal, a vertical cut, but I'm going to slice this apple. We're going to see if it's an organic or inorganic apple. So if I do a transverse cut, I'm cutting this way. So I'm just going to cut carefully. It's a bit juicy. Oh, it's looking good. It's nice to have an apple every morning. So I cut it down. So I've got my apple, I've cut it, and I'm going to have a sneak peek. And you can see here that we've got some pentagonal geometry going on. Let me see if it's organic or not. And it's almost organic. Maybe there was just some sprays going on it, but this is just to show you nature's secret, that it chooses to rearrange its seeds in the most optimal way, because the seeds are all about taking your DNA into the future. So really important topic is to study seeds and patterns, and get excited about the slices of star fruit and the morning glory. Why did gamblers, they always chewed on the seeds of morning glory? Because it gave them psychic awareness so that they could know their opponent's cards and win. So this is the power of seeds. Look at this beautiful geometry. When we start getting pent within pent, we know that there's perfection going on. So Galileo called this, the book of nature is written in the language of mathematics. Just beautiful, stunning images that you see in your garden everywhere. In fact, in healing, they often say that the very medicine that you need is in your backyard. So if you have elderberry flowers growing there, then juice them, eat them. This one here, I have my own crow's ash. This is the pentagonal seed pod. It's a very spiky looking plant, seed pod, but when it opens up, it makes pentagonal geometry. I've also noticed that the seeds of eucalyptus, over here you can see the eucalyptus pod is 5-rayed. Pollen is dodecahedral. So here we have the beautiful dodecahedron, which is the shape of all the tectonic plates of the earth. So there's a fractal relationship between the tiny pollens that are dodecahedral, the human body, and the macrocosm of the planet. So beautiful structures. We know our starfishes. The 15th century alchemist, his name was Cornelius Agrippa. He drew the human form as a pentacle man-woman with the occult symbols of the planet. So you can see all these planets going around. But basically, we are the geometry. When we put our 2 legs out and our arms, we are in a perfect pentagon. And not only that, if we put our arms straight out, not down, but if we put our arms straight out, the distance from fingertip to fingertip is called the span, and that, let's call it 1.6 meters. It's actually the same as our height. So we actually stand, when we turn around, we actually stand in the geometry of the cube. So this 5-pointed star is interesting because when I take 5 cubes and rotate them upon themselves, they make pentagonal geometry. So it's a shift from the 4 to the 5, the square to the pentagon. So look at these beautiful grains of sand. They were pentacle forms. They're minuscule, but they were found in the Okinawa beach. Okay, this is another one called the sand dollar. We've all seen that on the beach. perhaps the greatest secret is when we look at a pine cone, we see that there's two forces of counter-rotating fields. One spiral's going one way and one's going the other, but they're not equal spin, because if you look closely, you'll see that there's 8 spirals going one way, and if you squint your eyes and look again, there's actually 13 spirals going the other way. So nature's secret is in the seed pods. It's saying that it's not 21, 21. These are Fibonacci numbers 8, 13. So I call it not pine cone, I call it the pine code, 8, 13. So it exists with all the other flowers as well. So learn your Fibonacci numbers, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. It's an infinite additive sequence. And when you successively divide 13 into 21, 34 into 55, you get the golden ratio 1.618. So that's here in the sunflower. You can see 21 spirals that way and 34 the other. So this is the key. And when you start studying sunflower florets and seed pods, because if they weren't all compressed like that, the seeds would just fall out. But nature's going to reveal Shri 108. There's an infinite there's a Brahmic secret hidden in nature's seed pods called the Shri 108, because there's 24 infinitely repeating numbers in the Fibonacci sequence that all add up to 108. So that's why we need to meditate deeply into nature's arrangement of seeds, because the seeds is what takes us into the future. So it's all about an intelligent packing of compression, perfected compression. This is a protea. I'm wearing the protea as a necklace right now. I don't know if you can see it closely, but this also has the same 2134 counter-rotating field as the sunflower. So the secret would be to study the mathematics of the pentagon, because something happens when you draw the pentagon within the pentagon. Another revelation occurs, and the first thing is that they're all 108-degree angles, those 5 angles, but where all the lines intersect of the diagonals, they all intersect at the mathematics of where the elbow bends. If this is 1, this is 1.618. So this is another subject on the divine proportion. This is the front cover of a book that I did showing the fractal pentacle. The pentacle within the pentacle within the pentacle is a harmonic cascading ratio, just like a waterfall of water. It's going from the large image to the small image in the same compression ratio. And it's all obeying what we call the Fibonacci sequence. So this is the symbol for Pythagoras. So their symbol was a blue star, and on the 5 angles they had HYGIA. So HYGIA is the name for the goddess of health and healing. You can see the pent in the cymatics, which is the art of seeing sounds. It's seen in tortoises and the turtlebacks. So you can see that this is just studying pentagon geometry in nature is huge, because it's also seen in seashells, the rangoli, passion fruits, butterfly eggs, spider webs, seed pods, diatoms. We saw that with Ernst Haeckel, these beautiful diatoms. Have you ever inspected what a chalk looks under a microscope? And you can see these armored discs of beautiful symmetry. Viruses are icosahedron. So this is an icosahedron here, which has icosa means 20. So all these viruses that we're talking about lately, they're all in this 20 triangular form, and they were found in Roman times 2,000 years ago in like bronze and metals. So migrating bacteria, beautiful flower-like patterns of the bacterium, yeast. So everything we see, whether it's an insect eye or a kiwi fruit, or the water droplets on the leaf here, which is called the guttation as the water comes out of the leaf, are all in beautiful symmetrical patterns. I grow this on my property here. It's called the heliconia. This is Amazonian lilies, all just beautiful structures that inspire. And there is a mathematics to these leaf patterns called root 2 geometry, which is basically the diagonal of the square. So make sure you learn what's called Pythagoras' theorem. We can get excited also about the exquisite geometry of fruits. Every fruit you slice, you're going to drop your jaw and be amazed. Also study the work of Paracelsus, who showed that the walnut is like the brain, but the very medicine in walnut does actually have healthy medicine for the brain. And my conclusion is basically saying that the human body and the planet have a commonality. So let's just conclude by just looking at river patterns. What does that remind you of? We can see it's like the veins and arteries in our body. So even these river patterns look like the lungs in our body as well, or an inverted tree. So if I was to ask you, what are you looking at here? You would kind of think you're looking at a tree, but really what you're looking at here is a child's kidney. This is the venous arterial system in a child's kidney, no different than a tree, but this is actually an image of what we call coral. So you've seen these patterns on the veins of a leaf, how beautiful they are. And this is how we want children to learn, through discovery and appreciation what we see in nature. So we want to tie this up and connect all this now to the DNA helix, because the cross section of DNA is pentahexa. You've got the 5 and the 6, which we've seen, this crystalline structure of DNA, we've seen this in many of the other creatures like the trunkfish. But here, the transverse slice of DNA, just like the same way that we slice this apple, if you were to slice the double helix of DNA, you can see that it's 10-sided. It's a double pent. It's back to the geometry of the pentagon. And this pentagon has got a lot to do with what we call the tectonic plate. So the Earth is actually seen as a giant dodecahedron. There's that shape again. So what we saw in pollen is also the shape of the Earth as well. So that's what fractal means, when the inside is the same as the outside. So we've seen this pentahexa geometry in the trunkfish, in the tortoise. It's inside the cells. So these geometries inside the cells were like the soccer ball configuration. So this is an electron micrograph. So all these familiar geometries are nothing new to us. We see them everywhere. So even if you look at the human nerve system, we see it like electrical patterns, the same as the nerves in the hand. This is an amazing picture where even the lines of the hand match a leaf pattern here. Pine cones is the shape of the third eye, the pineal gland, which is about coming into connection with our higher intuitive abilities, because we're here to comprehend and copy nature, and realizing that nature has its secrets of what we call counter-rotating fields, and it's in the small creatures. It's also in the human body. This is also a map of the energy field of the body. So this torus, which means ring, is the same as the human configuration. It creates a fractal resonance with the planet. So that's why when we have fear, our electromagnetic field that comes from our heart shrinks. So when we have love, we expand. But the first organ in our body to form was the human heart. And this is the center of our consciousness, the center of where we grew from. An embryo was the center of a torus, which today in our physical body is our heart. So we need to, work on daily meditation. When you sit still, just go back into your heart, listen to nature, get excited by the humble things like sea urchins, and remember that we are connected to all things macro and the micro. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I just wanted to let you know that I do have an online course. If you want to learn more about sacred geometry, I have a fantastic course called The Flower of Life. It's kind of like a beginner's guide. So I've put a lot of love and time into getting this knowledge there out for you. So this is where you would start if you want to learn sacred geometry. It has 29 lessons, 12 hours of information, and they're pre-recorded classes, and you have it for a lifetime. So you can see that today with this presentation, we only just scratched the surface. I go into more detail into this course, which is the story of creation and how we are connected to the universe, how we are interconnected at all scales of existence, and that's called scale invariant. It doesn't matter what the size is, we're connected to the infinitely small and the infinitely large. So all this information normally is valued at $1,008 US. But I have a special for you, because you've been attending this webinar. I'd like to as a bonus, give you all the 6 workbooks that I've put together. These are all full of beautiful worksheets for any child of any age to work through the information. So they're presented here as the 6 ebooks on sacred geometry. In fact, I would like to also give you a recording of this webinars, which means that you can watch this again, because I did go a little bit fast. Pause it at your own pace and stop and start. You can share it with others. And also, I get asked many questions, so I'm always active inside the course. And also you can we give you a certificate of completion. That's something that you can hang on your wall. We've also included the best of all my social media posts. That means you get a collection of videos, you get a bit more mysticism, ancient knowledge, so much information. You just work at your own time. So today, because you are on this webinar with me, I'd love to reduce this down to $275 US. That's kind of like 70% off. I get many questions from all around the world. Yasmin asks, I don't have time, but I really want to learn. So yes, we offer lifetime access. The lessons are pre-recorded to enjoy at your own pace. So Yasmin, just click on the link. Jonathan from Canada asks, I am not good at maths, but will this be too advanced for me? There are no prerequisites to join, just it's suitable for all people. So Jonathan, just click on the link below. And finally, Louise, yes, you can comment on any video. She says, can I talk to you inside the course? Yes, I'm always active inside. So just click on the link below. So like I said, it's discounted because I just want to share this knowledge with the world. Yeah, so I really hope you enjoyed this presentation. All that we are seeking for is really written within ourselves. All ancient knowledge from the past is not hidden. It is recorded and written in the archetypal language of sacred geometry. Our job is to decipher these patterns and recognize that they are coherent and communicate to us the magnificence of creation.